Welcome to the Bill Levinson Experience, a motivational podcast relating to the insurance brokerage industry and business in general. And now, here's Bill Levinson.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining the Bill Levinson Experience podcast. This is our first episode right after the 2020 New Year. So very excited about this. And I'm also excited to introduce you to our guest speaker today. And the reason why is, this man is a very close friend of mine. And also, even more important for all of you all, is he has helped build one of the largest car dealerships in the country. So I'm very, very proud to call him my friend. We have Mr. Larry Zinn from Warren Henry joining us. And, you know, before he gets started, I just want to talk about a few pointers. And everyone should make sure that you jot down some notes so you can remember this not only today but in the future, because you're going to learn all about some of the latest technology, social media, CRM tools, customer touch points. Yes, Larry's from the car industry, okay, and most of us are from the insurance industry. And then, of course, we have other vendors on. We have CPAs, financial planners, etc., from all ages and all different parts of the country. But the main point here is when we're talking about sales, at the end of the day, if we're selling a new Range Rover or a $1 million indexed universal life, sales is sales, okay? And follow-up is follow-up, and customer service is customer service. So I want everyone to jot down notes. Larry, and just to give you a few pointers before we introduce him officially, he is, believe it or not, okay, and Larry, you're 32 now? 31 years?
33.
33. Okay. All right. Well, you look 31. So that was my point. All right. So what's so impressive is, so from an individual side, in Automotive News, the publication, he was rated top 40 under 40. South Florida Business Journal, again, top 40 under 40. And then Lifestyle Media Group, he was voted as the up-and-comer of 2019. So very, very impressive stuff. Him, his father, and Eric are basically the three partners that run the Warren Henry Automotive division. And part of Warren Henry, I'm just going to mention a few lines that they handle, mainly in Florida, is Jaguar, Land Rover, Infiniti, Lamborghini, Bugatti, Koenigsegg, Audi, Toyota, Ford, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram. Okay, so if you do need a car, you're looking at trading in a car, I always want you to think of our friend Larry. He's been so nice to take time with us today, so obviously we want to reciprocate, and if you are looking at a car, let us know and we'll make the introduction. But what's so neat here is, so in a very short time, the Lamborghini store, in fact, they're going on their fourth year right now, they're rated in the top 5 in the U.S., okay, in just a short 3-year time period. So impressive. Land Rover, they are number 1 as far as volume in the entire country, folks. So that's huge, and there's a lot to be said for that, obviously. I mean, that's a lot of work. And Larry, being only 33 years old, okay, just married, just had a baby, he's juggling a lot, and he's doing a phenomenal job, okay? And Larry, I'm going to build you up a little bit here, and don't get too conceited when I talk about this, but I think it's important for everyone to know these are all facts. So Larry's father, just real quick, started in the 70s with one dealership, okay? And Larry was asked to come in and be part of the team in 2008 when the recession just started. So you can imagine that opportunity for him actually expanded because they needed someone to know technology, social media, basically to see what is needed to power through this recession, and not only power through, but to grow and build, and Larry did exactly that, okay, at a time that we all know was very, very difficult in the U.S. So that just within itself is unbelievable. So very impressive there. So officially today, he's a partner and the executive general manager of the Warren Henry Automotive Group. And what I want to do is we'll dive in and just introduce Larry, and I also want everyone to know why this podcast is so important to me. Larry is a little different, let's say, than the rest of the quote unquote car dealerships that I've ever worked with, at least. They're more like a family, okay? It's not so salesy, and I'm going to upcharge this and throw in this tire protection package. They won't even know what they bought, or it's like a real family. What you see is what you get. This is the number. There's no haggling back and forth for 2 weeks, and then you walk out of a dealership. It's a totally different environment and experience. And, I personally was at Larry's wedding. I know Larry's family, his father very well, and they're all exactly the same. What do they say? They're all cut from the same cloth. And that to me means the world. I don't care what business that you're in. That is so, so important. Okay, so with that said, I want to introduce Larry Zinn. Larry, thank you so much for joining us today. We all appreciate the time, so thank you for that.
Thank you, Bill. I really appreciate you asking me to be on here. I've been pretty excited about this, so looking forward to having the conversation.
Yeah, well, thank you, Larry. We're all excited, too. In fact, we have 20 employees here, and I told them this morning what we're doing, and everyone's going to be tuning in as well. So it's great stuff for us. Okay, so let's just move forward here, and I want to start with the first question, and I think it's an important one. We have a lot of millennials, younger generation, Gen Y, Gen X. We have baby boomers. I mean, everyone from across the board, literally, on this call. And I think it's important for everyone to know how it all began for you, like growing up in this car kind of family, your education, maybe your first car experience. Can you share a little bit, taking it back for us?
Oh, absolutely. So growing up in the family business, I would come to the car dealerships, and I've always been super passionate about cars. Truthfully, I wasn't really sure that it was going to be the course I was going to take for my life, that I was going to be in the business. I had other interests, especially when I was younger, and wasn't sure that it was what I was going to do. But I mean, going back as far as 10 years old, I got thrown out of the showroom for the first time for distracting the salespeople. And every time I had to go to the dealership with my father, which I really enjoyed because it was, a time we got to spend together, I wasn't allowed to be in the showroom any longer. I had to go and do something. So I had to go put away parts. That was really the first thing that I did at that age. And every time I'd come in, my father would come up with these different odd jobs for me. Until I was about 15 years old, and we had the conversation about, hey, I'm going to turn 16 next year. I want to get a car. And he said, well, if you want to get a car, you need to work. So my first real job at the dealership actually was picking up trash. So I would go and I'd pick up trash around the dealerships. And when I was finished, my father would have me bring the bag of trash to him and make sure that it was sufficient. And then he would walk around with me and make sure that he didn't see anything. And if he saw that I didn't pick something up or there was something else out there, I'd have to start over. Once I was finished picking up trash, then I was allowed to wash cars. And if you're talking about an exciting thing to do, washing cars is the most exciting thing you can do after picking up trash. When I finally got my driver's license, then I was able to work as we called it a service porter, but basically I was moving customers' cars around, taking them to and from the wash, retrieving cars, and moving things around. And that was a whole lot of fun because I got to drive so many different cars. And, as a car nut, that was a really big deal. I got to sit and, I'd count how many cars I got to drive on any particular day. And would, try and go for my records to see how many different cars I could drive. Then going into college, I went to Boston University for 2 years. I didn't really have the greatest experience there. I kind of got a little bit lost, and I didn't feel like I found a solid group of people that I was, going to I didn't have a great group of friends. I couldn't really find my way. I thought maybe I wanted to get into film production. Wasn't really working out for me. In the business classes I was taking, I felt that they were very, very focused on being a public company or working for a public company. I knew that if I did go into the business sector, that I wasn't going to be involved in a public company. I would eventually go back and work with my family. So I dropped a couple classes. I didn't tell my parents. They got a letter in the mail saying that I was a part-time student. And then as soon as they got the letter, I got a phone call saying, you need to get a job. So I was working once again, parking cars and washing cars up in Boston. And it's a little bit different when you're parking and washing cars up there because it's a good deal colder. And, you get called in to shovel snow and do things like that you never had to do in Miami. But, it was certainly a good experience for me. I got to work for another dealership for the first time. And that was an eye-opening experience because I got to see how somebody else was doing things. So that kind of gave me the idea that, maybe later on, if I do go back, I'll go work for someone else first. So I transferred to Northwood University. It's in Midland, Michigan, which is a small town in Michigan, where they have an automotive marketing and management program. I double majored in automotive marketing and management. And actually, one of my more memorable experiences there was that when I first interviewed, my future lead professor told me that he used a different word, but basically that I was a screw-up. And the only reason I was transferring from Boston was because I was a lazy dealer's kid, and I'll show up to take my tests, and that'll be when he sees me. And other than that, I'll go on and do what the rest of the lazy dealer's kids do. And I said to him, Professor, I'm not lazy. I really didn't have a great experience where I was, and I'm going to get an A in your class. And he said, no, nobody gets an A in my class. I said, not only am I going to get an A in your class, I'm going to get an A in all of your classes. And he says, yeah, we'll see. But, that was a really important moment for me because, number one, it felt like he cared. And number two, he was challenging me. Okay, and I think, he found what motivated me and made sure that, I understood that he was calling me out and putting me to the test. Moral of the story was, I ended up getting A's in all of his classes. And after I graduated, I went back to remind him. So
love it.
That was about June of 2008. And if you remember, June of 2008 was a little bit more of a difficult time in the world. Things were starting to fall apart a little bit. I wanted to go and work for another dealer, large dealer group in Texas. That was my goal. I called my father. I said, look, I think I have an opportunity to go and work for someone else. And he said, look, business is really bad. You need to come home. So I came back and started working in the family business in finance. First 2 months I was doing finance was interesting, to say the least. Things were getting bought, not getting bought. We had some customers that starting to go bad on their loans. They had 3 and 4 houses or apartments that they were trying to flip, and all of a sudden it wasn't so easy to flip those places. It was like the wheel stopped turning. And then things got really bad. So I ended up getting moved into the Infiniti dealership, and at the Infiniti dealership, I moved from the the finance manager position into a sales manager position. The day that I was promoted to sales manager, half of my sales staff quit. They didn't want to work for a 22-year-old kid. What am I going to teach them? What the hell do I know? So I got with my father and I said, look, I lost half the staff on day one. What do you think I should do? He said, well, go look at who's going out of business, contact them, contact their HR department, and see if you can get some employees. So I went to Circuit City, and I set up a job fair at Circuit City, and I started interviewing people at Circuit City for sales positions. And then I basically made the decision along with my father that, I'm not going to hire anybody who has car experience. I want people who only have non-automotive experience. So that way we can train them, and when they trade them, they're going to fall back on their habits, and those are going to be good habits. They're not going to talk about how good things were elsewhere, and they're not going to bring any baggage. And that took some time to build. I mean, it really was a difficult thing to do, but once we started getting the hang of it, we were seeing people stay on board, and they were successful. And all of a sudden, these people who had no experience were crushing the guys who have been doing it forever. I mean, just absolutely outselling them in every facet. And then that became our company way. And little things that we started doing during that period of time when things were really difficult, all of a sudden became part of our culture and continued to carry forward. And then when we look at where we are today and how many of those people are still with us and how they carry those values that they learned early on and how they're teaching those who are coming in below them, it's absolutely fantastic. Now, I don't know that you wanted me to speak for that long, and I know that
No, that was perfect. That was perfect.
Let's move on to something else.
No. That's a great story, Larry. That in fact, I didn't even know half of that, and I love to hear it myself. And it's such a great point. You know, when most of us are out there looking for employees or an assistant or admin, you know, you try to find someone with insurance experience or, in your case, automotive experience. You know, but here it's like you take someone from the ground floor and you teach them and mold them to do it your way, and they don't bring the baggage. You know, that works so much better. And what a brilliant idea. You know, I remember Circuit City, and I remember how they had stores all over and how I believe they went bankrupt, and that was the end of Circuit City. So that also was brilliant. You know, and to hear you talk about like how you went in all these different directions, and you know, you went to college, and your head wasn't there, or your surroundings weren't what they should have been. I went through the same exact stuff, and you know, yes, you're in the automotive side, I'm in the insurance side, but we both kind of grew up in the business. And, you know, I have been literally spoon-fed life insurance since I was a child. And, you know, I remember my dad used to I would go to a friend's birthday party, and my dad would wrap the birthday gifts in a life insurance application. You know, when everybody else had wrapping paper and a bow, mine was a life insurance application. And I said, Dad, why are we doing this? You know, people are pointing at me and laughing. And he would say, no, Bill, this is great, because when the kid opens it, the parents are always standing around, and they're going to look at it and go, why an insurance application? And they want me to say, well, my father's in the life insurance business, and hopefully that will spark a quote, which will lead to an application and a new sale. So, you know,
That's
it was
really
like
clever.
Yeah. So, but I feel like we both kind of grew up, you know, in our respective different parts of the industry, and you know, here we are today. You know, I remember fighting, you know, I didn't want to be in the insurance space, and you know, I always pictured, you know, these chubby old men with short ties and short sleeve dress shirts, and I was like, this is not what I want to do. You know, this isn't the cool thing. But, you know, after trying, I worked at Chili's, I worked in a motorcycle dealership, I did it all, just like you, from the ground up. I did it all. And, you know, at 22 years old, a mentor kind of pushed me in the right direction. And we took a small retail agency to 18,000 agents nationwide. And, you know, here, this thing that just wasn't the cool thing to do, you know, turned into a national organization today. With you know, my help and my vision, and the same exact thing for you on your side. And I love to hear these great stories. So it really doesn't matter if it's cars or life insurance. Okay, good stuff. All right, so this is a big one. And by the way, you know, I think that what most of us want to hear, and I can't wait till Larry starts to talk about this, but, you know, I want to hear about like technology and social media and texting and websites, and how that kind of, you know, changed the space, and how you helped, you know, I feel like you streamlined everything, and you kind of headed up that project and had the vision, and I did the same thing. So I want to hear your take on that too. But first, before we move forward, I want to ask you, and this is such a great question for any of our guest speakers, if you can go back 10 years. Okay, so let's say when you were in your early 20s, is there anything that, what you see now today where you are in 2020, anything you would have told the 22-year-old Larry that would have helped you even more today? Just anything that our listeners can benefit from?
I'm very proud of what I was doing in my early 20s. When I was in my early 20s, I wasn't necessarily the most proud of it because I felt like I was missing out on everything. My friends were going out, they were partying, they were all spending money and having a great time, and I wouldn't go out. I was super focused on being at work first thing in the morning, being the first guy there, the last guy out. And that was one thing that really my grandfather had kind of imprinted in me was, listen, when you get to work, I want you to give me 5 years of being the first guy in and the last guy out. And I know 5 years seems like a long time, and your friends are going to be going to concerts, and they're going to be doing all these wonderful things that you want to do. But after 5 years, you and I are going to talk about this again, and we're going to see where you are and where your friends are who are going out and partying and doing all those things, and we're going to have a conversation about what you did and whether it was the right thing to do. And I took his advice. And not to say that I don't work my ass off now, because I definitely do, but back then, I was always there. It didn't matter. And, I'd get called for family events, and I'd say, look, I'm working today. And everyone would say, okay. They always understood. And my friends, a lot of them, they didn't really understand, why don't you want to come? Like it was a slight to them. But it wasn't. It's just I was trying to get to a place and a level of success that I would feel very proud about. And ultimately, when I look back on it, I'm extremely proud of it because I got some great advice. I stuck with the advice, and it helped me become who I am today and helped me get to a great level of success, really by my mid-20s, that I never anticipated I could have had.
Love it. Yep. That's such a great lesson there. And my little version of that, I'll just tell you real quick. I know you can relate to this. So I remember when I worked in a motorcycle dealership, which ran very similarly to a car dealership, and our general manager, this guy Manny Ordonez, I couldn't stand him at times. I loved him at times, but I'll never forget. I was like 19 years old. We had every Saturday a sales meeting at 9 a.m. And for a teenager to come in at 9 a.m. on a Saturday is like pulling teeth. You want to go out and have fun the night before. So I'll never forget this. I literally walked into the sales meeting at 9:07 a.m. Everybody was already sitting there in the conference room, and he looked at me right in my eyes in front of everybody, and he said, Bill, you're 7 minutes late. You can go home for the day. And I had to turn around, put my tail between my legs, drive another 30 minutes south, and I missed not only the sales meeting, but the busiest day of the week, which is Saturdays in our business. Yep. So after that, I was like, I cannot play around with this anymore. I was never late again. Here I am today at 43. I'm still working on my time, but I learned a great lesson there. And that sometimes that's what it takes. And yeah, you have to learn the hard way.
And you set that same tone, right? Yep. You move the same way when you do with your staff going forward. And, it's those little things that leave an imprint on you, but ultimately set the tone for what you're doing.
That's exactly right. And you're pissed off at the time, and there's nothing worse, but look how it changes your life in the future. So, yeah, that's exactly right. Okay, let's move forward here, and I think this is another big one. So they literally just built, I believe, one of the largest dealership showrooms in the country. Okay, they're in the heart of Miami. Right now, we have the Super Bowl coming up within the next month. Very exciting stuff. Their dealership is over 800,000 square feet. Is that right, Larry, roughly?
That's correct. That's correct.
Yeah, I mean, I was there once. I got the whole family tour, and it is literally mind-boggling. If you're in South Florida, you got to stop by. and check it out. But part of my question to Larry is, so, I see where you guys are today and how you've impacted the company and the organization and in fact, this new showroom. And what is the direction that you want to go in the future with the company? And just, maybe what are some of your goals and vision for the company? What are you thinking, Larry? Where do you want to see things go?
I want to continue to raise our level of service. I don't think you can rest on your laurels and rest on your name. You've got to continue to improve. And our business in general is going to continue to go through some really big changes. The way we sell cars, the way we service cars, the way we communicate with our customers, all those things continue to change. But what we know as a traditional way of do business will no longer continue to exist. My goal is always to try and stay with what's happening, and whenever I can, get ahead of it. So when there's an opportunity to innovate, we're at the forefront of that opportunity. So as time goes along, and one of the things that we really tried to do when building this new great facility was to do our best to future-proof our operation. So provided the world decides that everybody wants to drive electric cars going forward, if that in fact is the correct solution for transportation, we're wired in this building for over 300 car chargers, and we can easily adapt to that. Right now, we don't have them all in there because we don't need it. But as the future goes along, if things change and that's what we need, that's what we're going to have. We try to look at the ways of communication. One of the big things when I was starting in 2008 was people were starting to use our website and send in leads through the website, and that was a really big deal. Okay, and the old school guys that I worked with, they thought that if you were sending in a lead through the internet, you were a flake, and that you didn't deserve any attention, and you get to it when you get to it. And I was always like, no, listen, you've got to pay attention to that person. You need to respond to them faster than the person who's sitting in front of you, because you're going to lose their attention. And they have the ability to reach hundreds of dealerships in the same amount of time that you're going to sit with one person in front of them. So you better pay attention to them right away, respond to them as quickly as possible, and continue to hammer your follow-up until you get in the door. And I would have fights with the other staff about this, because I would try to put a process into place. I would have guys saying, if you do this process, we're going to quit. And you know what? In the end, a lot of them quit. They left. Whatever happened, happened. Okay. But the way of going forward was that things were changing, right? People were communicating with us in a different way. It wasn't like everybody was just going to go to the dealership and look at all the cars in the lot and then decide what they want. The process changed. The way people shop changed. And we're continuing to go through that now. We're seeing it with social media. We're seeing it on how people communicate with you through social media. We get leads from all sorts of different social media sources now. And it's the same principle. You've got to treat that customer the same way you treat the person sitting right across from you. And you've got to be even more responsive. And you have to stay with those trends. But it's very difficult because you have all these different platforms out there. So how do you stay on top of it? It's, every day something else new seems to come out. But, you've got to build and adapt.
And that's the same exact thing for us in our business as a IMO wholesaler. It's the same thing for our agents on the call. It's literally taking a lead and making sure you strike while it's still hot, and making sure your follow-up process is 100% impeccable, and your touch points have to be perfect, okay, before the policy is bought, during, and after. And it's the same thing for the car business. It's the same exact mindset. And being proactive and that forward thinking is what changed our business and what changed Larry's business. And you all have to think the same exact way. If people want to communicate through DMs or PMs on Instagram or Facebook or YouTube or your website chat box, or through email or phone calls or webinars or Skype or a cell phone or texting, you have to make sure that you cater to the customer's needs. If they want to communicate a certain way, we have the platform. That's the way I look at it, and that's the way we'll always look at it. And whoever's not on board with that, I hate to say this, but they don't fit our mold, okay? It's sad to say, but you always have to be able to pivot because things are changing, especially nowadays, so quickly. And Larry just spoke about that, so that's
and you know, Bill, one of the other things that you need to look at is how easy do you make it for people to communicate with you? Can your customers text your office line? If they do, what happens, right? If you're not in the office or if somebody wants to chat right now, who are they chatting with? How do you get that information to your people? How do you respond as quickly as possible? Once you do have that communication, what does your follow-up cadence look like? You know, is everything spelled correctly? Are you presenting, are you putting the best foot forward for your business to where people want to do business with you and believe that they're dealing with a professional? Those are the kind of questions that you need to go back and look at and say, all right, you know, am I putting my best foot forward every time I communicate with the customer? Am I looking as good as I can in front of that customer? If I was shopping, would I want to do business with me?
That's huge. And if you're a one-man show, or you have an admin or an assistant, or you have 20 people in the office or a call, whatever the case is, it's like that one phone call or email or direct message, whoever replies back is a direct reflection of your company and what you stand for. So it's just like what Larry said, and business is business. You know, there's no difference. We're all doing the same exact thing, and we all have to make sure that whoever is responding, I call it the front line. It's like the Marines, the recon unit, you know, that comes in first. They have to be a great reflection of you and what you stand for, and that's it. Okay. All right, Larry, real quick, and I'm going to get off topic a little bit. How many employees you guys have now, roughly? Just a ballpark.
430, give or take.
Okay, 430. Okay, we have 20, and you know, there's always a little bit of a challenge. You know, we make sure that we have our weekly trainings and meetings to keep everyone, you know, abreast of what's going on, and we have to make sure everyone's motivated and passionate about what we do. I'm just curious, real quick. Do you guys meet, you know, daily, weekly, monthly, yearly? How do you keep everyone on the same page and motivated? Is it a weekly training?
It depends on the department. Our sales teams meet daily. Yeah, our sales teams meet daily every morning. Okay. Not a long meeting, but every morning they meet. They go through what business is coming, how they can improve. We look at customer service scores and responses, reviews, see where we could have done better, how we can learn from each other's successes and how we can learn from each other's mistakes, and how we grow.
Love it. I love it. That's what's needed. That you got to, before you even hit the phones. I feel like you have to, if it's that sales meeting, or for me, it's at my podcast. I listen in the morning every single day. I'll listen to an Audible audio book, but you got to get in that right state of mind. You know, and put on your blinders, you know, and that just brings up another good point. You know, Larry has competition all over the place. Okay, guess what? We do too, and so do you, right? So I feel like, you know, you have, in my opinion, you have to keep these blinders on and stay in your own path, and don't worry about what this one is saying or doing or marketing. Or you have your plan laid out and you stick to that plan. Do you kind of agree with that, Larry? Do you have a different way of looking at it?
No, look, you know, winners focus on winning and losers focus on winners. You know, you've got to focus on your plan and continue to move forward with what you want to do. But you also have to have a differentiator when ultimately anybody can sell the same thing as you do, right? Yeah. Why? What makes you different? Why buy from me?
Yep. Love it. That's right. That's a great point, and I think we all know what our own value add is. And if you don't, you better write down some bullets and make sure that's clear with not only you but your staff and everybody, again, on the front line. Okay, Larry, any good field stories that come to mind that you can share with the audience? Anything, you know, it could be personal or business or anything that kind of connected all the dots for you, or Anything you want to share?
I wouldn't say that there was any one particular story that connects all the dots for me. I think the big thing that really I'm hyper focused now is how to make our dealership the best possible place to work. That's really where I'm focused now is, what do we need to do to make this place a place where people come every single day, they want to be at work, and ultimately, if we're going to treat them well, they're going to treat our customers well. And we need to keep reinforcing that and continue to stay in front of our people so we know what's going on. Recently we kind of changed the way we did things in regards to how we communicate with our staff. And now we do monthly town hall meetings where we pick random employees from every department, get in a room together with all the top level executives, and just ask questions. What's going on? Is everything working? What's not working? How could we be better? How could we make your job easier? And that was an area where, truthfully, we were great, and then we weren't great, and now we're trying to be great again. We have to do everything we can to over-communicate. I know it's a little bit off topic of what you asked.
No, it's perfect. It's going back to the front line.
That's really, my ultimate focus right now is trying to do everything I can to make our organization the best organization possible.
Yep. No, that's huge. And obviously you're doing something right because, what was it? Automotive News magazine. You guys were named 100 best dealerships to work for 6 of the past 7 years with multiple top 10 finishes nationwide. That's huge. So obviously you're doing something right. That's a big deal.
But the thing that stuck with me on that was that it was 6 out of the last 7 and not 7 out of the last 7. And that's where we needed to be better.
Well, that's perfection, my friend, and that's why, if you look at what you have accomplished in that short amount of time and vice versa, that's why we're always going to strive to be just a little bit better. And I think that's what it takes to be successful, especially this day and age. Okay, so do you want to take a minute just to explain, the basics of the Warren Henry model? And I already spoke about all the manufacturers, but maybe your value add and what makes you unique, not just like another Me Too car dealership?
Well, we tried to look at how long we've been around for, right? Our organization has been around for over 40 years. We have a stellar reputation in the community. We are very, very involved with our local community for charitable organizations, not only offering our employees volunteer time off to use their own time, but trying to make sure that we get involved with as many organizations as we can, whether it's religious institutions, large organizations, youth, anything from a local baseball team. I mean, we want to be a good member of the community. And I think that's really important when people look to who they want to do business with. They want to look at people who are involved, who, help give back. Additionally, we try to provide a better why buy here message. Beyond being a great member of the community, we try to give additional advantages to our customers depending on the brand. We give, if you're looking at our same car versus another car at another dealership, that's exactly the same. We also give a year of key replacement and a year of wheel repair for some of our brands. So that gives us a slight differentiator. Also, when you go online, when you look at our reviews, we are a good place that's easy to do business with. And that's what we try to focus on, is make the customer experience as good as possible. People don't really like going to car dealerships. I'm sure you're aware. We're a close second to the dentist and, some attorneys. So we've really got to focus on making the dealership as pleasant of an experience as possible. And when you do have an issue, you got to get in front of it, right? You can't let it linger. So we do everything we can to try and find out if somebody had a poor experience or something went wrong. We try to find that out right away so we can address it. You can't let things sit. You can't let things linger. Nothing good happens when you do that.
Nope. And I feel, like with the power of the internet now and social media and these chat rooms, as fast and as long as it took to build up that great name and reputation, it can come down in seconds. Literally, one unhappy customer that starts spilling all this trash online, and it can destroy your name and your brand literally in minutes. And I've seen it happen to people. So you got to be so careful.
No one person makes our organization great, but one person can break it.
Yep,
they can take the whole thing down.
That's exactly right. I tell our employees every day that's exactly right. And that's why even we all have those pain in the butt, customers or agents or, whatever the case is. But sometimes you put your tail between your legs and you try to turn it into a good situation and do whatever it takes, because we're all going to come across that person, I promise you. So you have to have the patience and do whatever it takes.
I think another thing that's really important to us that adds to why people enjoy doing business with us is also the experiential factor that we provide. So, your ownership experience doesn't start and stop at sales and service. Your ownership experience with us gets you access to all sorts of events, to driving events, to car shows, to dinners, trips that we do as a group. But what kind of comes along with that is it builds these almost family-like relations between our customers. So in many cases, it's an avenue for people to meet other people as well. And that's a difficult thing to advertise, but for those that have experienced it, I think they're able to see, like, okay, this experience ended up being more than just a transaction. I've made friends out of this, and now, I've got a place where I even like to go and hang out and have coffee. That's not just a car dealership to me. And, being able to make that type of experience has always been extremely important to us.
Yeah, and I've been a part of that experience. So I'm a firsthand witness to that, and exactly what you're talking about, you have accomplished. Because I've met so many great guys and girls from the networking groups and the trips and drives and all the above. And it's like a big family. So you have done exactly that. I'm going to give you an example for you insurance agents out there. So I was speaking to one of my agents. It's funny, I met him through social media. It sent me a direct message, and that's how the relationship began. And what this guy does, and I don't want to give away any secrets, but exactly like what Larry was just talking about, he puts on these retirement parties. Okay, so he'll tell, Susie Smith that just retired, hey, I'm throwing you a party where the Orlando Magic plays in their stadium. I don't remember the name of the stadium, but he'll rent out like a room in the stadium, and Susie will bring her friends, and those friends turn into referrals, and they'll bring in a dinner and cocktails and appetizers, and then guess what? You do the same thing every year for these different groups, and you're creating that same environment. So just think along those lines. It's a great value add, and it's a great opportunity for you to build relationships. And you can take it to any sector that you would like, but there's so many ideas built around that. I love that. Okay, so we have a lot of younger agents listening. Some of our audience that's not even involved in insurance, they're in their teens and 20s and 30s. And for some of those people listening in, what advice do you have, okay, maybe to stay on track and power through those obstacles that are going to come up? I don't know if you like listening to audiobooks or a mentorship or, any discipline advice, anything you can give out. I call them nuggets, Larry. Anything you can share with the audience?
I think it's important to, we're in a different time now, right, where it's all about the glamour that's shown on social media. And I don't think people understand what's behind it. Sometimes it's real and sometimes it's not real. I would say don't be afraid to stay away from it, especially when you're super young. Because if you can go and you can put the hard work in, and, you may not be doing all the glamorous things that your friends are doing, but at the end of the day, after you've put that hard work in, as time goes along and your success continues to build, you're going to be in a much better position than those who are out partying and celebrating and, doing all the things that you wish you could have been doing at that particular time. It's really important to take care of yourself, not only physically but mentally. Even though you go and you grind and you work your butt off, it's important to take time for yourself as well. That was one of the things that I think I didn't do a very good job at early on in my career, because you never want to reach that point where you experience burnout. And I believe that's a real thing where, the correlation between hours worked and productivity, they're not necessarily there, right? You kind of reach a point of diminishing returns where your productivity can fall off. Even though you're there at work, you're not really there, right? Because you're not at full speed and you're tired, or you're, mentally just cloudy and you're burnt out. So it is important to take time for yourself, even though you are doing everything you can to grind it out and to, be a more successful individual at whatever it is that you're doing.
Yeah, no, that's strong. Do you listen to any kind of audio books, or maybe the gym keeps you focused, or mentorship? Your father's your biggest mentor, I believe, right?
Yeah, my father, Eric, our CFO, they've been, great mentors and leaders for me to watch how they do things. And, you want to look at different business leaders. And I think I've had the opportunity to be around a lot of car dealers and see some of the great things that they do. And, in many cases, I'll take the best of what I like from each of those people and try to model what I'm doing based off of those things that I found from them, while still putting my own touch on it. In regards to podcasts, I've never listened to that many podcasts. I do listen to a lot of books. Actually, I've been listening to one that you referred to me recently, which is Relentless. And I think it's awesome. I mean, just trying to understand, what makes for a great competitor, and the things that, I can change in my life to continue to improve on what I do every day. And, I do read a lot. I'd say recently, the most important thing in my life is my family, my wife and my daughter, and trying to figure out how I can balance everything that I'm doing now while still being a great father. Because ultimately, that's what's most important to me now. Is I want to be a great father. I want to be a great role model to my daughter, and I want to make sure that she knows me not only as the guy who's at work all the time, but as a father who loves her very much and is able to influence her life.
Yeah, that's strong, Larry. That's strong, and I think you're doing a great job at 33 years old with all of these responsibilities. You're crushing it. I want to touch on one thing that you mentioned. We spoke a little bit about the podcasts and, let's say, the audio books and just physically reading a book the old school way. The way I look at those things is like, you take, if you listen to, let's say, Relentless, by Tim Grover, which, by the way, is incredible. I can't recommend it enough. But let's say you listen to a couple of podcasts as well. You're taking, 30, 40, 50 years of experience and these great tips and success stories and wrapping it up in a 2-hour podcast or audio book. And I feel like to not do those things, you're missing out on so much knowledge and experience and education by guys and girls that already did what we're trying to accomplish. So, I also think it's important that exactly what Larry said, feed your brain with this stuff, take it all in, and at the end of the day, don't copy what anyone is doing, okay? You can learn and, of course, use the same lessons and learn from these people, but do it your way. As soon as I look, because I was also very young, growing growing up in the industry, and people didn't take me serious. I remember speaking at a big iPipeline meeting, and it was very difficult for me because I thought everyone was looking at me like a child. So I think it's important to be yourself. As soon as I realized, hey, Bill, you don't need to act grown up and mature and be that guy. You can be yourself, and these people will appreciate that, and they'll see through the gray area. Be you, and that's what people pay to see in any business. So that's a strong point. Okay, so real quick, we're going to move forward here, and I know we're just about done, by the way, but I think this is probably the most important question on today's episode. Social media. Okay, I want to know, Larry, how you look at this. Maybe what platforms you see the best results on. If we can talk a little bit about your website, maybe some CRM follow up. Any tips or anything you can share that you guys are doing, because I think this is so relevant to any industry in today's time.
So we've started to use the Facebook Marketplace. I've actually experienced getting a lot of leads on Facebook now. We have all of our inventory on there. And I'm really surprised at how much that has driven the business. But, once again, it goes back to, all right, if somebody sends you a lead on Facebook, you've got to be as responsive as possible. Another thing that, I've been very surprised about is how people engage through Instagram. It's still difficult to use it as a sales tool directly, but depending on the content that you're providing, I can't tell you how many times that we've posted a car, something extremely unique, out on Instagram, and all of a sudden, you get a direct message from somebody saying, hey, is that available? Or how can I get one of those? And I think that's starting to happen more and more as time goes along. I got to say, individually, I have no idea about how TikTok works. I have a social media team of younger millennials than myself who seem to get it, so I lean on them for that stuff. But as far as the two major platforms that we use to drive business, or at least get the most success out of, those are Facebook and Instagram. We are on Twitter. I don't know Twitter to drive any business. It just seems to be a way that we can stay engaged and in front of our customers and provide news that's happening with our brands and, with our individual operations. And then in regards to CRM, that's another big focus for us this year. We just changed to a new platform, but now it integrates with our phone systems. Not only are we able to see how many calls everybody's making on a daily basis, but we're actually able to confirm that those calls were made, and then listen in and coach on those phone calls. What could we have done better? What could we have done differently? So that's been a really great addition for us. Also, how many contacts per lead do you have? Are those contacts the appropriate contacts? When do you know, or when do you stop contacting a customer? For us, the old saying is buy or die, right? You keep contacting until the customer tells you to stop contacting them, or that they bought somewhere else, in which case, you just kind of tone down that marketing and continue to try and reach them in different ways, because just because they're off the market right now doesn't mean they're not going to return to market at some point. So you want to continue to maintain that relationship in some semblance. Maybe not necessarily be as aggressive as you were early on, but you want to continue to try and reach that customer, keep them engaged, so you are top of mind whenever that service is needed again. In regards to CRM, there is nothing more important. The people who are most successful in my business are those who stay in contact with their customers after the sale, especially. Right?
That's right.
A lot of people are afraid to call after the sale because maybe they're going to find out that something's wrong. You want to find out that something's wrong, because the time where there's something wrong or there's an issue and you fix that issue, that's how you earn a customer for life. Because when that customer looks back at their experience, they would say, I had this going on with my car and that going on with my car, and, Bill called me out of nowhere. He asked me what was happening. I told him, and he fixed the problem. Right? when everything goes perfectly, you don't always get an opportunity to build a great relationship. Sometimes that's a one-time relationship because everything was perfect and, the customer moves on. Maybe they come back later on because they had that perfect experience. But when sometimes a poor experience or not so perfect experience can lead to a better relationship and better opportunities. Not that we aim for that, but it's being prepared for it. So when that does happen, you know how to address it, you know how to get in front of it, and ultimately how to keep a customer.
Yeah, that's huge. That's huge. And, we sit here, we have our weekly training webinars, and I had the Gary V episode, and I'm trying to encourage all of our agents, to let them be aware of how important it is to have a professional looking website and how important it is to market on social media. It's huge, not on 6 different platforms, but at least, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, the basics. It's huge. Your follow-up email CRM system is huge. These are all the different prongs that lead back to your business and your home office. So it's so crucial. Larry, real quick, what I want everyone to understand, if you were to look at, let's say, and this is just off the hip, not exact numbers, but if you look at all of your sales that come in, what would you say the percentages that came from social media and from one way or another? If they saw a picture or an ad or a message, or would you say it's 10% of your business, half your business, just roughly, all just from social media itself as a whole?
I'd say it's difficult to quantify the number of people that come in directly from social media, but I would say over 60% of our customers are influenced by something they see on social media before they contact us in any way, shape, or form. So they may not necessarily contact us through social media, but they may have seen something on one of their social media platforms that got them engaged or got them curious, or perhaps even changed the way that they look at a brand because they were influenced by someone or something that they saw on there.
Yep. So think about how that's changed. Say the last 20 years. Okay, that was basically at 0 20 years ago. Today, Larry just said roughly about 60% in one way or another either saw something or were influenced by something on social media that drove them to the Warren Henry Automotive Group in one way or another. That's priceless. So
and then when the customer when the customer does reach us, right, when they do look at our social media or our website, that's a representation that in many cases can be more important than our showroom. Because if that representation isn't positive, right, if our digital showroom, our digital experience isn't, something that's professional looking or something that, we can be proud of, the customer may never engage past that point. You're driving them to a dead end.
That's exactly right. That was my next question. You just took the words right out of my mouth. What is how important is your digital footprint, your website, right, compared to the physical dealership itself? And I think you just answered that question. But you all need to relate to that and think along those lines, because if it's insurance or a car, it's the same exact thing. It's the feeling and the representation of you and your company. It's that simple. So we encourage, and we have all these platforms, we can help you with, but it's so important, and that's exactly what I wanted to ask Larry. Okay, Larry, unless you have anything else, I want to move to just our last question here, and then we'll wrap up. Is there anything, any closing comments, any advice to our audience, any suggestions before we wrap up? Maybe something that works for you, or anything that you want to leave the audience with before we put a bow on this?
That's a tough one. I think everybody's got to find what works for them. The things that work for me may not work for everybody else, and I don't think that the things that work for me today may be the things that work for me tomorrow. But the things that I've been taught early in my career is, number one, you're never going to know everything, and the day that you think you do is the day that you need to quit. Okay. And number two is you can learn something from everybody, and it doesn't matter who that person is. Okay. It could be anybody in any any setting that you meet, there's always something to be learned and something that that person can impart on you. And it's important to remember because as big or successful as you become, you're never too successful to keep learning.
Love it. Love it. Strong words. And by the way, it's not like Larry, was brought up in the business and just came into the business a year ago and that he was put into this executive position. He has helped brand and create this company. He's been instrumental in the Warren Henry Automotive Group. So my hat goes off to him and everything that he shared and learned over the years. And of course, on a personal level, the friend that he has become in the last, it's been about 5 years now. So great stuff. I'm going to leave you with a few things. Larry, I assume you're okay now. Is there anything else or was that it?
No, I appreciate the opportunity to, be on the show and have the conversation with you. And, look forward to doing it again sometime, hopefully.
Great. And we will. Absolutely. We'll do a part two. Couple of my takeaways, and I like to call them nuggets. Number one is a point that Larry brought up was, as big, important to remember because and it's that person can impart on you something to be learned and something that you meet. There's always else, or was that it? You're okay now? Is there anything? I assume your things, Larry. I'm going to leave you with a few great stuff. 5 years now. So in the last, it's been about. He has become personal level the friend that, of course, on a learned over the years, and a thing that he shared in him and so my hat goes off to Henry Automotive Group. So, in the Warren has been instrumental create this company's brand, and he has helped something to be learned and something that that person can impart on you. And it's important to remember because as big Larry brought up is a point that number one nuggets. And I like to call them a couple of my takeaways. Part two, well, absolutely, we'll do a great and we again sometime. Hopefully, look forward to doing it again. And have the conversation with you, be on the show and the opportunity to, I appreciate brand and create this company. He's been instrumental in the Warren Henry Automotive Group. So my hat goes off to him and everything that he shared and learned over the years. And of course, on a personal level, the friend that he has become in the last, it's been about 5 years now. So great stuff. I'm going to leave you with a few things. Larry, I assume you're okay now. Is there anything else or was that it? You meet. There's always the opportunity to, be on the show and have the conversation with you. And, look forward to doing it again sometime, hopefully. Great. And we will. Absolutely. We'll do a part two. Couple of my takeaways, and I like to call them nuggets. Number one is a point that Larry brought up was, as big, important to remember because and it's that person can impart on you something to be learned and something that he has helped else, or was that it? You're okay now? Is there anything? I assume your things, Larry. I'm going to leave you with a few great stuff. 5 years now. So in the last, it's been about. He has become personal level the friend that, of course, on a learned over the years, and a thing that he shared in him and so my hat goes off to Henry Automotive Group. So, in the Warren has been instrumental create this company's brand and. I appreciate something to be learned and something that that person can impart on you. And it's important to remember because as big Larry brought up is a point that number one nuggets. And I like to call them a couple of my takeaways. Part two, well, absolutely, we'll do a great and we again sometime. Hopefully, look forward to doing it again. And have the conversation with you, be on the show and the opportunity to you meet. There's always brand and create this company. He's been instrumental in the Warren Henry Automotive Group. So my hat goes off to him and everything that he shared and learned over the years. And of course, on a personal level, the friend that he has become in the last, it's been about 5 years now. So great stuff. I'm going to leave you with a few things. Larry, I assume you're okay now. Is there anything else or was that it? He has helped the opportunity to, be on the show and have the conversation with you. And, look forward to doing it again sometime.